talk to me about the role that you see food and food systems playing in sustainability.
Yeah, I think it has a huge role to play. In the UK, agricultural land covers 70% of land, and it's similar numbers across the world. Food is the second biggest contributor to climate change, and we all make choices about food 2 or 3 times a day. So I think food has a huge role to play.
And how is Wild Farm capturing on the fact that food has a huge role to play?
Yeah.
What's the philosophy behind it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. The philosophy behind it is that we can effect mass land use change to be a contributor to the solution to climate change rather than a contributor to the problem which it currently is today. How? Yeah, through regenerative agricultural techniques, which means essentially looking after soil, but from that you sink huge amounts of carbon, you can protect wildlife and massive boosts to biodiversity, create higher nutrient-dense products, which are clearly better for human health, store and filter vast amounts of water. We're now in a stage where agricultural runoff is a greater polluter in our rivers than sewage. And I think the combination of all these things together means that we can have an enormous effect.
So how are you then, as an organization, actually really driving that change? And what's the uptake been like across the UK so far?
Yeah, I mean, globally, there are 3 major hurdles to regenerative agriculture being just agriculture. One is farmers have been de-skilled in the last 75 to 80 years through the advent of chemical farming, where chemical-based farming and petroleum-based farming has replaced biology-based farming. Secondly, government incentives are completely misaligned with encouraging growers to do things that will protect soil health. And thirdly, and in my opinion most importantly, the consumer has no idea that their greatest point of agency in the climate crisis is their food choices.
So what do you see then as kind of the solution to each of those 3 buckets that you've just laid out?
So what we are doing is we have developed a community of growers who all follow a third-party audited set of standards that we make very clear is our definition of regenerative agriculture. The word regenerative is getting bandied around by all sorts of people to mean absolutely anything to anyone, and is fast becoming meaningless. So what we have done is said our interpretation of it, and we've had that third party audited by Control Union. Secondly, we spend vast amounts of time working with DEFRA and lobbying DEFRA to try and explain that doing good in one field and doing good in another field is not better than doing the 2 pieces of good in the same field at the same time. And finally, we spend a huge amount of time, effort and energy in educating consumer education that food doesn't have to be a problem, it can be part of a solution.
I want to dig into that last piece. So it sounds like what you're saying is there is greenwashing around the use of regenerative as a word in the same way there's greenwashing around something being called sustainable or being called organic or whatever you want to kind of say. How have you started, what has your process been to educate consumers, and how has the uptake been so far?
Yeah, well, there are 2 things on that. Organic is slightly different than the other 2 because organic requires a set of verification. And what's good about organic is that it's an internationally understood set of protocols to follow that are essentially moving towards the same destination that we're trying to move towards. But again, it's been around for a long time and it's less than 2% of farmland, and we need to go quicker because the house is on fire. Most people know that, and we need to go quicker. So what are we doing? We have created a set of very clear standards. The greenwashing that you refer to is I will put down, for example, a cover crop, spray it off with a load of glyphosate, but because I had a cover crop down, I'm saying that I'm doing something regenerative. And we're calling that out as absolute greenwashing. What we're saying is our principles are in-field diversity at all times. So many different types of plant in the field that's growing the crop that we eat at the same time. Integration of animals where possible, always trying to protect soil microbes. And when we start doing these things, and nothing with the word side in it. No insecticide, no herbicide, and no fungicide. We don't like the word pesticide because that makes it sound like it's helping solve a little problem in the field rather than indiscriminately killing insects, which is what it's actually doing.
Right, which of course then causes a whole nother set of problems because you need insects in the basic
we need life.
Cycle of life.
We need life. We're just one part of life.
So then this is all obviously being done kind of at a local level with your organization leading the charge. What role do you think regulation and kind of stakeholders at a slightly more nationalized or even globalized level have to play in pushing this agenda along?
Yeah, governments and legislators are typically slow. That's my experience working with the UK ones, and I've no reason to think they're very different in many other countries, even though we do seem to change government more frequently than we used to here. My opinion is that the consumer demand will be the lever that will affect the change that we need to affect in food systems. We have built a very innovative supply chain that we very carefully considered having a verification code, a bit like an organic stamp. But the problem is this: there are 463 eco certifications in the UK alone. The customer is confused and disengaged. However, people engage with brands. So we're building a brand that has real meaning to its early adopters. And I think in the coming years, all brands will be regenerative brands. In the same way that the 10 biggest tech companies in the world today are nothing like the 10 biggest tech companies in the world 20 years ago, barring, say, Microsoft and possibly Oracle. I think the food businesses today, I think when we go into a grocery store in 20 years' time, every single product on every single shelf will be grown this way. And whether existing brands will try and retrofit that, which I think is hard for them to have completely transparent supply chains, or whether the big food businesses will try to start again with new brands, I don't know. But I think all brands will be absolutely. I think all products will be grown regeneratively, and brands it will be expected that that's what's done of it. It won't be a nice to have, which is what sustainability has been for too long.
So, looking kind of to the next 5-10 years, what are you most excited and optimistic about in terms of sustainability and where we can go?
Yeah, I think for too long, humans have been asked to be more sustainable. And humans have a low cadence for change. We see it with recycling. It's taken decades for that to become what it is. My parents didn't do it, my kids know no different. But what I see changing now is that sustainability is becoming more human rather than the other way around. And as it comes into your daily life, just choose this one rather than this one. And whether if someone says to me, "Can I have a product that's really good tasting, but it's from unsustainable sources," or one that doesn't taste as good but is from sustainable sources, I say that's a false choice. And I think a good quality product, like Patagonia did it in the climbing gear, absolutely, probably the one and only place that we can start. It's a bit of fresh air after those guys. I think what I'm excited about is that this is the way that everybody's thinking. And it's not just from the consumer. The bigger businesses are having their supply chains, their upstream supply chains are being held under much more scrutiny now. Is what are you doing? Why are you doing it? How are you doing it? And again, events like geopolitical events and weather events are testing the resilience of these supply chains. So it's no longer a nice to have. Sustainability is going to be the biggest source of innovation in the next decade or two, and I find that hugely exciting.
Thank you. This has been absolutely wonderful. I appreciate it.